The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
You've always got time for Short Time.
Hey, it's Warren Lopez.
David Taylor.
Brent Metcalf. Johnny Hendricks. Tony Ramos. Bubba J.
Mike Golick.
Matthew Modine. The one and only Chael Sonnen. And you are listening to the one and only Short Time Wrestling Podcast by the often imitated and never duplicated Jason Bryant.
Now from the Short Time Wrestling Podcast, we're going to stick around and talk to another Southern Conference All-American heading to Boone, North Carolina to talk to Denzel Dejournette, All-American at heavyweight. And interesting story. Denzel, first of all, we'll get to your interesting story as we get on to the program. First of all, congratulations on your All-American honors and welcome to the Short Time Wrestling Podcast.
Thank you so much.
So we're coming off Easter, and I got to know right now, what is the Easter candy that sucks you in every time?
It's the jelly beans. I got even before Easter, I bought some the Starburst jelly beans.
Just the Reds?
I got the regular. You said just the Reds?
Just the Reds, or the whole bag of just regular jelly beans?
The whole bag of regular jelly beans.
Yeah, my wife gets the Reds, and it's only the red ones, so those are addictive. Yeah.
That sounds like a great investment. Those are my favorite ones. I didn't know they had one with just the Reds.
I know where you're going after we get done with this interview.
Oh, yeah. I'm right near Walmart.
All right. So we got the Starburst jelly beans. What else?
Got the regular, the Brock's. I think that was called. Brock's. I think that's like the original brand. I think that's like the Coca-Cola of jelly beans. So I get those, but I always pick out the licorice ones. I don't eat those. I just put those in in a cup somewhere and not throw them away.
Yeah, somebody's going to come around and be like, cool jelly beans. Be like, licorice.
Exactly.
Nothing worse when you think it's a grape when you bite into it and you're like, no.
Oh, yeah.
Red licorice with the Twizzlers. Yeah, the red licorice with the Twizzlers were fine. The black licorice can't quite work. But anyway, we're not here talking about, although I will say that the robin eggs get me every time. But as we talk about wrestling, not just a couple big guys talking about food and candy, you got an interesting story here. Let's just start out before we even get to your All-American honors. Coach Bentley is telling me that you came out for wrestling after you got cut from your freshman basketball team because you thought you were going to be Allen Iverson, and that just did not materialize.
Right. So my freshman year, I went to play football. I didn't start playing football until my sophomore year, but I started to get into it a little bit. I was actually too soft to play football. I didn't want to get hit, but I finally summoned up the courage to want to go to play football. And I remember they said, if you want to play football next year, which was a lie, by the way, if you want to play football next year, you have to either play basketball or wrestle. Like, you got to do another sport in the off season to, stay in shape and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, let me try for basketball. I'm a huge Allen Iverson fan. Granted, I cannot dribble or shoot. I just go hard in the paint, but I'm also 6'2", so in those 6'8", 6'9" people, I got to make up a 6 to 7 inch vertical to even catch up with them to try to catch the ball over them. So that dream died, and I tried out for the wrestling team, and I was awful at that too. But there was a shortage there. Wrestling's really tough, so I was luckily able to find a spot somewhere on that team.
So you were 6'2" as a freshman?
Yeah, maybe 6'1", but I don't think I've grown too much taller.
Well, it's still got to be, you walk into that wrestling room for the first time and people say, okay, that's the big kid. So what was it about wrestling that made you stick it out right away?
See, that's the thing. For one thing, I was tall, but I was not looking like much. I was a little pudge. I went from a pud to a stud, as I like to say. But I went in there, and there was a lot of people in there, and that practice was really hard. And one thing leading up to just high school, I quit every sport that I've done. I played basketball for a little bit. I quit that. I played Pop Warner football. I quit once we started hitting. I just wasn't a tough kid, to be honest with you. But I said, this is the hardest thing I ever done in my life. Let me stick it out and see what happens. And then I sucked my first year. I went 5-9. 3 of those were forfeits. So I only had 2 wins. So I had a pin and a decision. And the next year in the first practice, I remember I told myself, if I beat this one guy that was on my team, then I would stay. I was really thinking about quitting the first day of my sophomore year. And I said, if I beat this one guy that been beating the crap out of me last year, I stay. And I whooped him. So I was like, okay, maybe I got a future in this.
So, a lot of people when they come out and they're not having success, you're feeling soft. How does it How did you determine to say, all right, I'm going to stay? Because your track record had proven to that point you weren't going to. Was it that first win? Was it about how you felt after wrestling practice? Was it, looking back, is there something you can go back and be like, that's why I stayed?
Yeah, it was right at that moment. Like, it wasn't even the first wins because, like, it was still a lot of losses in between there. But I think it was when I beat that guy in the wrestling practice because he was one of those guys that had a full beard in the 7th grade. So he was one of those guys that just had testosterone and just really, really strong and more agile than I was. And I thought at that point, I thought he was an overall better athlete. So when I beat him and I beat him by a fairly large margin, I was like, okay, I think I'd be pretty good here. And then even then, throughout that year, I went from going 5-9 my freshman year to 28-17, with 20 of those 28 wins being 10s. So I was like, okay, I think I might, I made that big of a jump. I think I could be pretty successful here.
Yeah, you wrestled at R.J. Reynolds High School in Winston-Salem. Now, R.J. Reynolds, for those of us who grew up on the East Coast, I'm from Virginia. I know exactly who R.J. Reynolds is and what R.J. Reynolds is. It's a cigarette company because my mom worked for Philip Morris, the other one. So it's got to be interesting to be in a sport that relies on so much cardio to wrestle at a school known with the name known for tobacco.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely very ironic, especially, yeah. But honestly, like, you wouldn't even know that it was a tobacco school. It's kind of like an old, built off of tobacco. It's kind of like an old urban myth. Like, you hear like all the old guys say, oh, I work for R.J. Reynolds and I got this big benefits package, or they made a lot of money, like older people who used to work there their whole lives and then now they're pretty well off. Like, you really don't know that the school was built off the tobacco money unless you actually do your research, because it's just not talked about as much anymore.
Yeah, it's not. That doesn't necessarily be like, tobacco high. Anyway, we're not going to name it that. But what was the wrestling? What was the wrestling coaches like that really kind of helped you develop as a high school athlete?
I think one coach is always going to come to mind, and it was the head coach, because the thing about assistant coaches, they're a dime a dozen. Like, they come, especially at the high school level or the high school level like mine. Like, our school wasn't a great wrestling program. I was the only one to go to states my senior year, but he always believed in me. Like, I remember, like, my parents used to hate going to the matches because I used to just get pummeled on. And my coach told me and told my parents, he said, when he realized how good he can be, he's going to be a problem. And that's one thing that I always remember, because every year I made huge gains. So I thought that was a big deal. And that's one thing I'm always going to remember, because the other coaches, he'd try to bring other big guys in or other big coaches, and they'd be there for maybe half a year, something like that, and you never see them again after that. So the one coach was Coach Alexander. I want to make sure I shout him out. Coach James Alexander from R.J. Reynolds High School. He's the one that believed in me. He still came to some of my matches up at App. So he actually went to App. So I think that's a big deal, and that kind of stuck with me throughout the years. I don't know if he actually know that, because I don't think I actually told him that, because, men don't usually do that. So, but that's basically why I give credit to my success and to Coach Bentley.
How soon did you realize that you wanted to wrestle in college?
Oh, I think when I won the semis in the state semis. And the thing was, because I remember I was undefeated up until the state finals match. So there's a spoiler alert, I got second in states. But I remember my senior year, I was undefeated, and there was people like, are you going to wrestle in college? And I remember I used to like scoff, kind of like laugh it off. But no, like once I'm done, I'm done. So I thought that was very weird. But once, like, I won the semis match, Coach Bentley came to talk to my parents, and I finally got the recruiting feel of how that feels to have somebody come to you and talk to you about, hey, we want you. We think you have a lot of potential. So that's when I was still coming off that high of, like, winning the semifinals, and like, okay, I'm going to win states. And I was still off that high. So I was just like, okay, I think I'm going to wrestle in college. I'm excited. I can be this. I can be that. But it was basically off of the emotion winning the semifinals, because I pinned the guy in the first period.
Yeah, who else was giving you looks? I mean, you didn't. You talked about the foreshadowing here. You didn't win the state championship. Now, I want to talk about this match for a minute, and don't give away the hook of the story regarding who you wrestled. Okay, the guy you wrestled, Tyler Radford from McDowell. You were both undefeated. The final score of that match was 18-12 at heavyweight. What the heck were you guys doing?
We were moving. Like, the thing was, like, he had way better technique than I did. But, like, one thing about me that I don't care if you beat the crap out of me, if you beat me by a little bit, you're going to feel it. Like, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep fighting. So the thing about that, the one thing that I remember, that I pulled him back, like, trying to see, I didn't know I didn't have much technique. I was just an athletic guy. Instead of, like, lifting him and returning him, I pulled him back on top of me, and he, like, somehow he landed on me, and he was about to pin me. but my hips were pretty good, so I turned over on him and like put him on his back. He slid out of bounds, so it was those back points, and then the rest of it might have been takedowns and escapes. And honestly, to this day, I just remember that part. Like he almost pinned me, and then I flipped him, and I was able to get on top of him, and he slid out of bounds. Like other than that, I don't remember which takedowns happened. I just remember he was always in better position than I was. Like I don't know how I scored 12 points, but the only thing I remember is putting him on his back after he put me on my back.
So when you're coming off the mat, you end up being a state runner-up, fourth as a junior, second as a senior. You talked to Coach Bentley. What other coaches were giving you any looks? I mean, what were your options outside of Appalachian State?
I had zero. I would say Pembroke, but Pembroke, it's not like the coach from Pembroke talked to me. There was like a lot of North Carolina guys who are pretty good at the high school level would go to Pembroke, but he never actually reached out to me. But there was like a general interest in the air, but it wasn't like, Coach Bentley like actually came to me. I've never met the Pembroke coach. Like he's never like went out of his way to talk to me, and I understand why, but. So it was just honestly just App State only had one offer and one opportunity to make anything happen. So I just went ahead and took that opportunity.
Now, talk about going to App State summer camp.
Oh, he tell you about that?
Oh, yeah. He's told me about that. I want to hear what you got to say about it.
All righty. So this is one thing that I tell a lot of the campers because I work the heavyweight area. So my first year camp, I was going to my sophomore year, I lost every match. So I think it's like 10 matches, like somewhere between 8 and 10. It's a lot of matches because after a while you just do 2 matches per night, 2 or 3 matches per night or per day, and the tournament. And I lost every single one of them. So camp was miserable for me because not only that, I didn't have much technique, and I was getting frustrated not being able to follow the technicians and stuff like that. And I didn't win a single match. And I always make this joke that like Coach Bentley probably walked right past my mat, probably even like recognize me at all because I really was a scrub. Like I was the scrub of that camp. And so now I can flip that story, and the people that are frustrated is in the position that I was in. I can say, hey, look, I didn't win a single match at this camp as a freshman. And look at me now. I'm the face of the program at this moment. So it shows it don't matter how you start. It's definitely how you finish.
Yeah, I know exactly what it's like being the scrub at camp. I did not have the career you did, though, so I cannot. That's where the comparisons end between you and I, sir. But as we look at going through the program, you end up at Appalachian State, which is in Boone. What's that, about a couple hours from Winston-Salem?
Yeah, about an hour and a half.
Yeah, okay, so it's not as far. I know we used to go to Southeast Regionals from Virginia, which were in Boone, and from that part of Virginia was like 8 hours. It's like, man, this is out here. But enough about the geography. So when you get there, the key to this, the coming full circle now, the guy who beat you in the state finals is now your teammate at Appalachian State. What's that scenario like?
Well, I don't think he knew this, and if he ever listened to this, I guess he would know. But when I first came, I was like, all right, I was mad at him. He's a great guy though. Like he's a cool guy. He ended up being my roommate last year. Like we lived together and we became like best friends. But I remember I just had this huge chip on my shoulder, and my goal was just to destroy him, to try to destroy him on the mat and just get better. And honestly, it happened when I got there, but it's only because he stayed down in 97. Like he went down in 97. And I got a little big over the summer, so I was like 260. Because I was a 220 in high school. Went from 220 to 260. So, like, that weight difference definitely took a toll on it.
So you did get you did exact your state finals revenge, but only people in the room saw it.
Yeah.
So when you get to Boone, what was it about the place that made you go, you know what, I can be successful here? What about the coaching staff? I mean, you really did develop pretty well. First time I ever saw you wrestle was at University Nationals in Akron, and of course your name kind of stands out on the bracket. And I'm like, who is Denzel Dejournette? I had no idea. And then, okay, there's Akron. And then all of a sudden the next year, going in your redshirt year, I expected you to have a good year. And your freshman year wasn't terrible. Then your sophomore year, you land on the mat. But what was the key to your development from walking in there, still as a relatively green heavyweight to being a 3-time national qualifier?
I think the thing that changed is I kept believing in myself, and I love watching motivational videos. I watched a lot of Muhammad Ali videos. I watched a lot of Ray Lewis videos, and I put in the work. And I know that's a cliche answer, but I remember freshman year after every practice, Coach Bentley said, I want you guys to do 100 push-ups. And it was me and this guy named Jacob Smith, and it's a guy from Florida. We had 2 Jake Smiths. There's one from Florida and one from Virginia. I want to make sure I give this Jacob Smith from Florida his credit. We used to stay maybe 20 or 30 minutes after practice because we'd do it at the end of practice. He's like, all right, guys, bring it in. I got to go home. So we'd stay 20 to 30 minutes after practice finishing up our pull-ups. And then Coach Bentley, like, he noticed that, like, I had something in me, like, I'm a potential guy. So he he really like watched me, and he started having individuals with me to help me get better, help me sharpen up on my skills, because I have the athleticism. Like, there was no doubt about that. I had the conditioning. I had all the tools that you need, but my wrestling IQ wasn't there. So, he helped me tone in on my my wrestling IQ to get a little better. And it's still an area that I struggled in, but I made huge gains from like my freshman year to now in my wrestling IQ.
When you went into college, what were your goals for wrestling? Was it be an All-American and national champion, or was it just simply, all right, wrestling college?
My goal was really high. I really wanted to be a national champion, but at that point, I don't think I knew what it meant. Like, I know that it's a big deal, but I was just like, okay, I want the highest goal possible. Like, I just threw it up there. Like, I want to be a national champ. But my first year really humbled me. Like, everybody's good in college, and I'm like, man, like, I got so much room to grow. I got whooped by people that were not as good. Well, not even gonna say not as good as me, but people that might not even been ranked yet. And I'm saying I want to be a national champ, but I can't even beat guys that aren't in the rankings. So, like, what am I going to do? So that doubt did creep in. I didn't become a national champion, but that was my goal. I always do that out there. I always want to go for the biggest thing, because even though I fell short, I still got something pretty special this past year.
Yeah, let's talk about this past year and now go into it. You were an All-American. Actually, you were seated in the 8-9 position. You ended up wrestling Michael Krales in the quarters, and then again for 7th and 8th place. And this is a guy you'd had wins over in your career. But I want to zoom into the blood round match, round of 12. You're wrestling Conan Jennings from Northwestern, and you absolutely put a hurting on him, 9-0. What are the nerves like going in to that match, knowing you're a senior? This is the last shot you have to be on that podium.
Honestly, I didn't have any nerves going in. Like, I don't even know if you watched the end when I got my hand raised. Like, my coaches were more excited than I was. I was excited, but I was looking at it like this year I approached it completely differently, because if I would have came in there with nerves like the year prior I was the 6th seed, and I came out there and I was paralyzed with my nerves. This year I came out there, I was like, I got a job to do. And honestly, I think I wrestled up to that point, because the next 2 matches didn't go my way. But up to that point, I feel like I wrestled the best I've ever wrestled in my life.
But even before that, there's a guy, Ross Larson, who you had met in the previous year, and he ended your season. He pinned you in like 90 seconds as your junior year after you lost in the first round to Brooks Black. You drop down, you have the forfeit, and then Ross Larson ends your year. Now, before you even get to Jennings, there's Ross Larson standing in your way again. What was going through your mind when you see this guy drop in your bracket? Be like, oh, this guy again.
The thing is, I knew when he pinned me it was a fluke. And what happened in that match that I can attest to, I'm not comfortable in the over-unders and all that stuff, the throwing position. And he knew that. He felt that, because what happened was I felt like I definitely would dominate the hand fight, but I got in that position and I didn't want to be there, and I pulled out, and he felt me trying to pull out. He's pretty good there. He capitalized on that position, but I knew if we wrestled that match over again, that I knew that I could beat him. Like, it wasn't me being arrogant or in that sense, but I knew that he really didn't have anything for me. It was just that throw, and I showed that I was nervous, and he capitalized on it.
So that junior year is really where you emerged. You were seeded as a sophomore, but your junior year, you're in the Scuffle finals. You pick up some big wins. You beat Krales along the way. And then you have that disappointment of nationals. What did you do between your junior year and your senior year in that offseason to really challenge yourself to get better?
I stayed the whole summer. I think the month before that, I took May off and came back in June. And I was hurt the season before that, like going into like last season, or the season where I was seeded 6th. I was hurt going into that season, so I kind of just took a break, and then I came back into it, so I didn't go to University Nationals. But this past year, going into this past season, we went to Universal Nationals. We went to the freestyle duels in Washington, D.C. We wrestled every morning at 8 a.m. And so, like, it was a lot more mat time. I got a lot more mat time. And honestly, that was probably not the most painful moment in my career, because I had one more painful moment this past year, but that was the most, like, humbling experience. And it sucked because I had to wait a whole nother year to, like, prove myself. Like, I didn't want to go out as the guy that's like, oh, he's athletic, he's really good, but he just can't quite get there. And that, that's how I felt. Like, in my mind, I started doubting myself. It was like a lot of doubt that crept in, and I was like, man, like, this sucks. Like, I really, like, tied my identity into being, like, the 6th seed and being like, okay, I should be an All-American. And when it didn't happen, especially, like, I wasn't even close. It's like, am I even this good, or do I just I just have a great, like, season, and then, like, when I get to nationals, I just can't put it together because everybody's rising to the occasion and I'm falling. So emerging out of that was very hard. But I mean, I got out of that mental space, and my senior year, I felt good when I was wrestling, and I felt strong, so explosive. It was hard, but I made it through.
You talked about the painful moment. What was that painful moment this past year?
So this past year, Christmas Eve, found out that my cousin died. So that was pretty tough. Like, and I'm not attesting that's why I got eighth in the scuffle, but like that month, I just did not wrestle like myself. Like, I won matches and I beat some pretty good guys, but my mind just wasn't in it. Like, I even told Coach Bentley, I told him after the fact, I didn't want to tell him during, but those times I was in the practice room, even though I win, like, I just didn't want to be there. Like, I really thought about quitting the team just because my mind just wasn't there. And, I had to just readjust so fast because he died the 24th. I had the scuffle the 1st and the 2nd. So it was just real tough, and it was draining on me because my cousin was like one of my best friends. Like, we didn't talk as much, but we were closer in age growing up. So we hung out a lot. So it was just a really tough moment for me to get past and to get through. And I mean, I'm glad to say I got through it, but that was by far the toughest moment of my wrestling career, of my life, honestly. So
how hard is it for you as an athlete to reach out to your coaches and seek help in that type of situation?
It's really hard because it's not that I'm afraid to tell them that, like I can't open up to them, but it was me not wanting to be selfish. Like, I didn't want to draw attention to me and take attention from the team because, I mean, death is a part of life, and everybody dies at one point. I didn't want to I didn't want the team to focus on me because I was going to deal with it the way I was going to deal with it. Like, I didn't feel suicidal, anything that my life was in any danger. I was just in a bad place mentally. And I knew I was going to still do what I was supposed to do. Like, my grades didn't slip. My wrestling kind of slipped because my mind wasn't there. But, I mean, I was still winning matches, and I just didn't want to make it about me. I wanted it to be about the team because me and my family, we were going to deal with this together. I got them to talk to because Coach Bentley's, he's not – I consider him family, but he's not part of my immediate family, so that doesn't affect him. So I really feel like I couldn't talk to him about it the way I could talk to my parents, who I have a very close relationship. I could tell them anything.
Let's keep it with the coaching staff for a minute. What's it like to go be a Southern Conference athlete for Coach Bentley at a school that, there's been people know about Austin Trotman, people know about Kyle Blevins, but what is it about the staff at Appalachian State that really made you say this is home for me?
Bentley's very approachable, and the guys that he put on the team, like the assistant coaches that he put on his team, they're very approachable. Like, I mean, there were some guys that fell through, but like, he makes sure that they have the character and the things that we need to be the best successfully.
What's one thing that people don't know about Appalachian State that makes it an awesome place to go to school?
I don't know. I feel like everybody knows what makes App awesome. Honestly, it looks great. It's the mountains. It's like during the summertime, during the summertime, it's awesome. Like, it's like one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen. So, I mean, it's a great place. But one thing that I would say that I think people can feel about it, people are very friendly here. Like, I remember one time I had some black wireless Beats, pretty nice headphones, and I left them in the cafeteria, and I'm just like, there's no chance that, somebody didn't steal them. Like, somebody had to steal them. Because when I came back, they were gone. And I remember I was just like, man, let me just take this shot anyway. Hey, did you guys find any headphones? Like, no, we didn't find any headphones. And like 2 days later, somebody said, what color are your headphones? And I told them, I explained to them, like, oh yeah, we have them back there. And I got my Beats back. Like, you don't hear about that anywhere else. Like 300, 400 pair of headphones. Anybody can just think to their phone that they're just like, nah, I'm gonna just get this back and just kind of be a good person. I think that's us.
One thing that small college programs or smaller college mid-majors, as they like to say, seems to get hit with is like anytime you take a loss, you're going to fall more so maybe in the rankings than somebody from the Big 10, Big 12, those power conference schools. Do you feel like that you guys had to always wrestle your best against those big schools just so you'd have that opportunity to move up in the rankings and get noticed so you'd get a better seat at nationals or at conference time?
Honestly, we didn't even care about rankings. Coach told us don't even look at that stuff. And I was like, and I agreed with him because you get anxiety looking at that stuff. You're like, oh, I got to beat this guy. If a guy's a couple spots under you or a couple spots above you, you're like, it's too close for comfort. So he made sure we didn't even look at the rankings. He didn't care about that stuff. Like, granted, it looked good on the publicity side, but for us mentally, he didn't say anything about the rankings. Like, he really encourages not to look at that, not to look at flow wrestling, and honestly, it helped me out a lot. I didn't look at none of that stuff, and it helped me out a lot. Just because, like, honestly, a ranking is just somebody's opinion of you. So I don't really care what the outside world thinks of me. I'm going out there and perform the best of my ability every time. And one thing that he always said is, don't make any match bigger than the other. So when we were wrestling Chattanooga was just as big as if we were wrestle Penn State, even though that's our rival. But I see wrestling Carolina or even like a Division II school, we put the same amount of importance on that than if we were wrestling Penn State, Ohio State, and all those big schools. Because if you make it a big deal, that's when the anxiety creeps in. I think he realized that, and that was one reason why I think we were so successful this year.
You know, you guys have been ranked for a good portion of the last 2.5 years. What's been the overall attitude of the wrestling program amongst the student body and the student athletes there in Boone?
Just having that confidence and believing in ourselves. And we just, as far as the Sun Belt, like when everybody else moves to Sun Belt doesn't have wrestling, so we stay in the SoCon. But everybody having Sun Belt, I think they got better recruits. But for us, we just had to continue getting better. We had a great strength coach. We worked out a lot more. Like we put a lot more work in, and we worked on our confidence. We even did the mindset training thing, and that helped out a lot to help with our confidence and to kind of put things in perspective that I've never even thought about. So I thought that was pretty cool. And Coach really bought into us, and also he wanted us to buy into him. So when he was recruiting, he didn't want a bunch of knuckleheads. He wanted us to tell him straight up, like, what kind of guy is he? Does it seem like he has good character? Is he like somebody that's going to be a problem? Because that was something that I think he messed up on in the past. I ain't going to say he messed up on, but that's just something he didn't really think about in the past. You just know the wrestling side. You know they're a great wrestler, but you don't know how they are as a person. And that can be a bad cancer for the team. Like, we had a couple people on the team in the past years who they all quit, but they've been like negative influences on the team, and that really affects the team more than people may think. So I think he's done his homework a little more this year, the past couple of years, to get good guys that's bought in, that's willing to work hard, that's not relying on the fact like, oh, I'm the best on the team or I was the best in my high school, and having that prima donna type attitude.
One thing, you talked about the move to the Sun Belt. For those who are unaware, Appalachian State was in the Southern Conference for all sports for a number of years, still there with wrestling as an affiliate member. But the football program, along with Georgia Southern, moved up to what big boy football, the FBS Football Bowl subdivision. And people knew about App State for beating Michigan, 10 years ago at the Big House, that crazy game. I remember watching that game. But my alma mater at Old Dominion didn't have football, started football, and moved up to Conference USA kind of right around a year before Appalachian State moved up to FBS and the Sun Belt. What has that move to 1A or FBS football done in terms of what you feel the focus and the energy on the athletic department is, and how wrestling fits into that world of, okay, we're no longer the little guy as much as we used to be. We're playing FBS football. We can go to bowl games. We can attract a different type of student that knows where we're at. I mean, how has this impacted the student athletes in basically the non-revenue sports there?
I think it impacted them because they realized they had to step the game up. It's going to a different level. So I think preparing to step up, but most of the time in your mind, when you prepare to step up, you usually do. So I think in that situation, like a lot of the guys, the older guys that were here when the football team and all the other teams were in the SoCon, it's like, all right, we got to step it up. Like, this is a different animal. These guys are bigger, they're stronger, they're faster. And it's just to prove, like, I think it's just a pride thing all across the board. Like, you don't want to, like, move up and be like, you're not a Division I athlete with the mentality that, okay, we're moving up to a bigger league. You know, we ain't going to do so well. It's going to be okay. We're still rebuilding. That's not the attitude you have, especially if you're a Division I athlete. You're like, okay, I got to step my game up because you don't know what these guys are capable of. So I think we did a great job of that. And for wrestling, my thing about wrestling, I always say that, you know, wrestling programs getting cut all across the country. So I'm being realistic with the team. I was like, we got to stay on our P's and Q's. Football, basketball, they can make mistakes all the time. You hear about those scandals all the time. You're never going to hear about the teams getting cut. But wrestling, we got to stay on top of our grades. We got to be good role models in the community, and we got to win. Because if there's all of a sudden, they need to cut a program, wrestling is going to be the first to go. They can make the excuse for one thing, it's not making that much money, or, they're not in the Sun Belt anyway. So I know that we always have to stay on our toes and just make sure that we're well represented at all times.
Now, as we focus on wrestling, the Southern Conference, super competitive. The job that Kerry Colat has done down there at Campbell, you guys are moving. Danielle, it's got Gardner-Webb moving. SIU Edwardsville had an All-American. I mean, Talk about what it's like to be wrestling in the SoCon right now, and what you see from the teams around you and your teammates to be like, yo, you know what? This conference is getting better.
I think it's a big deal, like having Kerry Colott and having Coach Bentley. I'm gonna put him in the same breath as him, because I think as far as coaching, Bentley's right up there with him. So and the guy from Gardner Webb, you said Elliott. So and the SIUE, like, I think it's a big deal that we having some All-Americans. Like, that's really huge, because we've gone. You know, there's probably been some years that hasn't been All-American from the Southern Conference, and this year we had 3. And it wasn't like when there was 2 from the same team when Austin Trotman and Kyle Blevins were here. So I think it's a big deal to show that we're moving up, and that, like, we're not gonna always be like the conference is like the low ball conference. Like, we can do this. We can compete with other people, and I think that's a big deal.
How much did having quality heavyweights really help you? I mean, you, Haino from Campbell, Jared Johnson, Chattanooga has been ranked a lot, and Boyce Cornwell didn't qualify this year, but he's a guy that was pretty dangerous throughout his career, and you had good competition at the weight class. I mean, how much did that make you have to stay prepared each time out if it was a Southern Conference dual meet compared to, say, you know, the Big Ten, where every single dual meet you're going to hit a ranked guy typically?
I think it was a big deal. It was one thing. It was kind of like my ego wanted to stay, because I was the top guy in the conference for 3 years. So at this point, all these guys are getting good. And, you know, we're having the most draws for the national tournament for heavyweight than anybody else in our conference. So I think that was a big deal. And I wanted to make sure I stayed the top dog of that. I wanted to stay on top. And I mean, it was some close matches with Jared Johnson almost every time. And, you know, these guys are getting better, and I really look forward to that. Like, I saw when the guy from Campbell, he got so much better, and I remember looking forward to wrestling him in the finals when it actually came down to it, because he you know, from the first time I wrestled him in the year, he's got so much better. He had a huge turnaround, so I was excited to see where I stood with him, and that was a big deal to me, and I just wanted to stay competitive. But I didn't want to be like the big dog of a conference is not that great, which is an excuse that people will try to make, but they can't make that, especially at heavyweight. We had three or four ranked guys in the course of the year, at least, maybe even 5, but only 3 went to the tournament. So I thought that was a big deal to show that heavyweight is also coming up. That, like, it's not just these slow, immobile guys. Like, the guys who are the top 3, they're pretty slim for the weight class compared to years prior. So I just think it's a big deal, and I love it.
Yeah, you mentioned 5 good heavyweights. I mean, Bexley's also not chopped liver at the Citadel either, but, Jack McKiernan from SIUE had some good wins this year, and as did the aforementioned Cornwell. But I want to go back to high school just for a minute, and as you're entering college, and when you're from a school that doesn't have the recognition as being a wrestling school, talk about your high school, and you're being a relatively new wrestler or new athlete to the sport of wrestling, what wrestlers did you look up to? Or that you tried to draw some inspiration from, be like, man, I'm going to be like that guy?
In high school, I'm going to be honest, I didn't have any. I didn't care enough about wrestling to watch college wrestling. Like, honestly, I only cared about my team and me. That's the only people that I really watched. But going into my freshman year, I remember I had my roommate. He told me, he said, hey, you remind me a lot of Ed Ruth in the fact that, like, I just stay calm. Of course, Ed Ruth is light years better than me, and I can bet that all day, but he's just like a calm guy, even when it gets like out of control and it seems like, you know, he's in a compromising position. He always just stay calm and just kind of limber. And he said, you know, you remind me a lot like him. And honestly, like, we're being honest here, there's not many black wrestlers in the sport. So to see a black guy succeeding like that and him being so dominant, that was cool to me. Like, I just love watching how nonchalant he was and just how he was just dominating everywhere. And it was just really cool to watch. So I kept up with him a lot throughout my college career. I wanted to be a lot like him, just smooth and just able to pull it out no matter what.
No, you're also kind of lanky like Ed too. I mean, you got long arms, man. I mean, so you could cradle for days as well.
Yeah.
Now, as we work into what's next for Denzel Dejournette, I mean, you're in grad school right now. Majoring in strength and conditioning. Is your goal here to be coaching at the college level, high school level, NFL? What are you looking to take this degree?
All right. So this year it's been about wrestling. So I'm trying to wait until next year I actually have time to sit to myself and just think about what I want to do in my future.
All right, we have finished pretty much most of the formal part of the episode. Now we're going to go to a lightning round of 10 questions. It's called Short Time. Mr. Dejournette, are you ready for the challenge?
You know it.
3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, question 1. Who is your favorite person to follow on Twitter?
The Rock. I said The Rock.
All right, question 2. You win the Olympic gold medal. What are you having for dinner?
A big old steak with a Shirley Temple.
Ooh, Shirley Temple. Bonus point for that one. Question 3.
Yeah.
What's your favorite food spot in Boone?
Favorite Boone spot is Comeback Shack. I used to work there. The best burgers in North Carolina, and I know Cookout exists, and McDonald's are everywhere, and there's a lot of burger chains, but Comeback Shack is the place to be.
All right, I'm going to have to make a special trip down to Boone just for that. Question 4. All-time favorite flavor of Gatorade?
I would say there was the Riptide Rush. Riptide Rush.
Most common answer so far here on the program. Question 5. Your favorite video game of all time?
Grand Theft Auto.
Which one?
San Andreas. San Andreas.
Yeah, good call there. Favorite international wrestler?
Taha Akgal. I was going to say Jordan Burroughs, but I like the heavyweight. That guy's really good. The Taha Akgal, the Olympic champion, world champion, that guy's really good.
Yeah, he's not bad. Question 7. What move would you rather have in your arsenal? The John Smith low single or the Jordan Burroughs reshot double?
That reshot double, that thing is so explosive. I love explosive.
Who is one guy from history, whether it be a wrestler or a historical figure, you'd like to wrestle?
I say Ray Lewis because he used to be a wrestler, and I think that's something I could take on.
Okay, let's lay that challenge down right now. Question 9, funniest teammate.
Funniest team, I say Angel. It's 2 people. It's Angel Nahar, and Urban Enriquez. Those guys are the most witty guys I know.
And question 10, if John Mark Bentley were to be another species of animal, what would he be?
I would say a shark, because he always made this comment about smelling the blood and attacking. So I would say a bull shark or something along those lines. Or great white.
All right, I like it. I just kind of made that last one up just to get John Mark in there one more time. And one thing I got to know, too, when you walk around campus, once you got back with your medal, did the women just walk by going, Denzel?
Yeah, it wasn't like they were flocking to me. They're like, oh, congratulations, because the cheerleaders watched. The cheerleaders are like, they cheered our matches. So a lot of them like, oh, good job. You got to teach me how to slam people and stuff like that. And congratulations. And that's really cool. A couple girls in my class were like, congratulations. I think that's cool. I'll take that all day.
You going to continue wrestling at all?
I don't think so. I think I'm done. I help out, but I think I'm done with the whole wrestling competitively.
If people want to follow you on Twitter or keep up with what you're doing, how can they do that?
If you want to follow me on Twitter, DJD94. Oh, well, I got to get out the Instagram. That's the important one.
Oh, of course it is.
Yeah. For Instagram, Black Stallion 94.
All right, Denzel Dejournette's been our guest here on the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. In the time we got left, any final thoughts, anything you want to say, special thanks, anything open forum for you to speak?
Thanks for everyone who supported me, people that watched, people that came out to @wrestling to help that grow a little bit. I'm just thankful for everybody, and thankful for God for putting me in this position that I can have a platform to reach down to younger kids and just be a role model and just do the best that I can and show people that it's possible.
You are listening to the Short Time Wrestling Podcast with my daddy, Jason Bryant.
Thank you, Lucy, for that dynamite drop, as always. Little Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, in case you're trying to pick up the theme here of the program. Yep, I'm asking the video game question, and I'm leading out with the theme. Why not? Let's have some fun with it, because that was one of the games. I played San Andreas. I played Vice City, and that was pretty much the end of my video game. Like I said, in other previous shows where I talk about video games, is the PS2 is the last game system I actually own. Although I did build, like I said, a Raspberry Pi with the retro games with like I said, I actually totally crushed Abby and Dr. Mario last night. So I'm down in that series about 51-3 overall. I'd like to thank Denzel Dejournette for his time on the program. Just a very, very interesting and engaging young man, so best of luck to him in his career. I know that Jerry Briscoe of the WWE has his eyes on him. We didn't get a chance to talk about that, but I think he's got the opportunity to make some waves there just based on his personality and his opportunities with just being as he's got that size that they definitely like. So moving on. I'm releasing this on Tuesday, April 18th. The holdup. Why was the holdup? We've got bid cities, folks. We've got bid cities. Make your plans. I'm leaving on a jet plane. Don't know where I'll be back again. Yeah, let's just forget you ever heard that. So we know next year the Division I championship sites were set for 2018. Division I were in Cleveland. Division II was in Cedar Rapids. Division III in Cleveland. Of course, the NAI already set for Des Moines. The NAI is only set for the next 2 years in Des Moines, 18 and 19. So the big talk was about the NCAA 2019, 20, 21, and 22. And I don't have a drum roll sound effect. I don't really care. But by now, you've already read this. You've probably already known this. So 2019. Division I, Pittsburgh. Division II, Cleveland. Division III, Roanoke, Virginia. 2020, Division I, Minneapolis at U.S. Bank Stadium. That is the Vikings' new facility. Division II in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Division III in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. 2021, back to the Scottrade in St. Louis for Division I. Back to the Chaffetz Arena in Division II in St. Louis. Also back-to-back championships in St. Louis in 2021. And Division III back in one of my favorite towns in the country, La Crosse, Wisconsin in 2021. And 2022, the new arena in downtown Detroit will be the host for D1. Don't worry, folks. No more dealing with champ in Troy and Auburn Hills and struggling out there. They've got a new facility. The Red Wings are going to be playing there. A lot of stuff going on around downtown Detroit. Apparently, it's apparently going to be hopping. Division I 2022 and Birmingham. They will go back to the Sportsplex for the Division II Championships Festival with indoor track and swimming at Division II in Birmingham and Division III in 2022 Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Again, U.S. Cellular Center. So a lot of familiar places and some new spots. It hasn't been to Pittsburgh since I think the 50s. Hasn't been to Minneapolis since it was a Target Center in 1996. And it hasn't been to Detroit since 2007 with that. And I honestly didn't really, a lot of people really didn't enjoy themselves in Auburn Hills. It was the venue was fine. It just was in the middle of freaking nowhere. So, is it hot take time? No, it's not quite hot take time. But I will tell you this. I am going to be doing an episode for the Guillotine Grapevine later today, so Tuesday, April 18th. By the time you listen to this, if you're listening to it a couple days later, that's fine. Theguillotine.com. So I'm really going to get a Minnesota take on that one because that is, of course, a Minnesota show. So here's what my initial thoughts are. Like I said, not going to have too many hot takes. Pittsburgh, love the idea. I am stoked to eat some Permane Brothers, okay? I totally equate a championship by the food you can get there. For example, in Philly, I love the fact that we took cabs to get Geno's and Pat's. Even though it's not the best cheesesteak in Philly, it's still, you got to do it when you're in Philly. Actually, I'm just kidding. No, I don't totally judge a tournament by its grub. So Pittsburgh, check that one. I know Jake Herbert and crew really worked hard to try to get people behind this bid. I know that it's a great town. First time I ever saw a professional NHL hockey game was at the old Igloo. Let's just say a Permane Brothers and an Iron City Light. You are going to be loving it in Pittsburgh. 2020. This one I'm obviously excited about because the U.S. Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, Minnesota sits about 13 minutes from where I sit here and record this show right now. So whether or not I'm going to be staying in my own bed, I don't know. I mean, it would make sense for me to sleep in a hotel across the street and give my wife some sanity while I'm gone. Or I could just be comfortable around my wife and kids as I go to work. I'm actually probably going to get them tickets for that particular year. And back in Minneapolis for the first time since 1996, U.S. Bank Stadium. So Anthony Holman, throughout the course of the interviews, you've read them in Win Magazine, has talked about the NCAA looking at dome stadiums. They did this with basketball. And before you even jump out of your seat and start complaining about sightlines, I've seen a schematic from the Minneapolis bid. It's was not to scale, but a general concept of what it's going to be. Okay, these mats are not going to be like dead center in the middle of the football field. I did not go to the NCAA championships in 1997 when they were at UNI. I understand that's where a lot of people are drawing their dome concerns about, because apparently I wasn't there. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, that the mats were in the center of the football field and it was just really hard to see. You're far away. That's not going to be the case. From what I understand, based on the information I've gotten preliminarily, now this could change by the time I record the Guillotine Grapevine, the match are going to be closer to the end zone, so that bowl section is going to be kind of very arena-like, and then they're going to have a couple tiers. The configuration, about 24,000 approximate, because they're looking to open the opportunities for more people to see the championships, and a very multi-faceted type of stadium is US Bank. They've already held soccer games. They've held concerts in there. Metallica's played in there. They've a bunch of different things. So that place is highly configurable. So there's my sales pitch for US Bank Stadium and it being close to me. St. Louis. We all know St. Louis. We all know Scott Trade. They know how to do it. We know where we're staying. We know where to sleep. We know where not to walk. We're fine with St. Louis. Detroit. This one's probably going to get the most pushback because of what I said about Auburn Hills earlier. But new downtown arena. They've retired Joe Louis Arena. That wasn't even where they were a couple years ago, actually now 10 years ago at this point. So excited to see what Detroit can do again, because there's a great wrestling community in the state of Michigan. You know, Detroit's got that stigma about it, but I just got a hunch that this is going to be a good one, folks. So they've built up a lot of stuff down there. You know, obviously the Red Wings are popular. We're looking at hockey time, so it is a hockey town rather. Anyway, I'm not going to profess like my knowledge of Detroit hockey. I'll just leave that with Julia Salata and crew. So other sites, we'll go to Division II, Cleveland Public Hall. That's where Division III is going to be in this coming year. The E2s have been there. Sioux Falls, I've never had the pleasure of going to Sioux Falls for an event. The Chaffetz Arena at St. Louis University was a great host a couple years ago for Division IIs, and then the Crossplex in Birmingham finishes it up. Great facility again for Division II wrestling. Division III, I'm really stoked, obviously, being a Virginia guy, to get to go back to Roanoke, which is it's about 4 hours from where I grew up, but it's a national championship tournament in my home state, and having announced the NCAA championships at the Division III level for the last 2 years, this one I'm definitely marking on my calendar. So having a national championship in my home state is great. And of course, Cedar Rapids and lacrosse, going Cedar Rapids, lacrosse, Cedar Rapids. Nothing to complain about there. Great staff, great facilities, great support. So that is my little take on the championship system. So I want to hear what you've got. Just fire me some tweets at Jason M. Bryant, or go to mattalkonline.com/contact and use the speak pipe option. You can leave your voicemail, or you can just simply write it out, and I'll get my opinion back on your statement there about mattalkonline.com/contact. Now, that is out of the way, and I can take a deep breath. The show is moving into, third or fourth year. Well, let's just say we're approaching our 400th episode. We've been rolling since November of 2013 on the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. This is the flagship show of the network. We have just added 5 Point Move and Timmy Hands, a Greco-Roman website specifically for American Greco-Roman. It is the only podcast specifically about Greco-Roman. That is on the Matt Talk Podcast Network. If you are already subscribed to the master feed of the Matt Talk Podcast Network and all of the shows, you have already seen the first 2 episodes slide in. He is hosting that with Dennis Hall. We're talking Greco. Go Greco, hashtag Go Greco. Timmy Hand's doing great stuff with 5pointmove.com. That's spelled out FIVEPOINT move.com. So their new show on the network brings us up to a total of 20 shows. 17 are active, 3 are archived. So there is no end to the content that we're putting out here at the Matt Talk Podcast Network. And if you want to help out and you want to contribute, because I'm kind of going to be working on a bit of a fundraising push here over the next month or throughout the summer to try to bring some more shows to the network, bring some more original content, not just team shows or website shows. I've got some historical stuff that I want to bring to you. Of course, continue to fulfill my responsibilities with the network as a whole, my clients, and the National Wrestling Hall of Fame with that Legend show. And again, we've hit that goal. Production's coming through with those other shows. So if you want to support this effort for on-demand, commercial-free audio content you can listen to anywhere. The only commercials on this show, on this network, are what you hear on the mat, and from Buena Vista, which Monty Mertz is actually a sponsor. They have an alum sponsoring that program, so you get no commercials. Compound is a contributing sponsor to the Matt Talk Podcast Network. But to keep these shows commercial-free, you don't want to hear a Casper mattress ad on this show, do you? No? Harry's Razors? Any of that stuff? There are a couple sponsors I would like, but they don't see the value in our wrestling, and we got great numbers. We got great numbers, folks. And to keep these shows ad-free, to keep them consistent and rolling and allow me to get equipment upgrades when needed and provide more content for the preview guides and for all the patrons, this is what you need to do. You need to go to MadTalkOnline.com/join the team. There's a Patreon it's a Patreon page, and you can contribute from, say, $1 to $20 a month, or pick your own level of contribution. Certain levels get certain perks. Like if you're at $10 a month, you get a draft class. If you're at $20 a month, you get to be on the show. Andrew Burgoyne and Phil Merrill, don't worry, I haven't forgotten about you. You know, this show started out with a sponsor, Flips Wrestling, and Don Bichada did a great job at really helping us get off the ground. But you know what? This show is, again, original content, ad-free. The whole network is. So if you want to contribute to what I'm doing here and be able to continue to see this network grow in the medium of podcasting grow, and the content, the quality of content that you have become accustomed to with anything with my name on it, MadTalkOnline.com/join the team. And that is the direct Patreon link to contribute monthly. You know, if it's what it's worth to you. If it's worth $1 a month, thank you. If you think it's worth more than that, thank you. If you don't want to pay for anything, but you still like the content, go to MadTalkOnline.com/get-short-time and leave a rating and review on iTunes. Need your feedback, folks. Just want to thank you for that. And I'm trying to think of anything else I got. No, that's really all I got. I know that people are going to be talking about this left and right, but I'm going to be talking again with the Minnesota side of things on the Guillotine Grapevine soon, talking to some parents, talking to some coaches, talking to some people with the Sports Commission in Minneapolis. So, again, I'm going to focus on that for another episode of the Guillotine Grapevine, which you can find at the Matt Talk Podcast Network. But, again, you like this content, you want to see it stay commercial-free, and as my friends at Cord Killer say, loud, live, and independent, although I don't really do much live. But MadTalkOnline.com/join the team. That's all I got for you today. I'm going to go back and play some video games and do some interviews and get ready to go to Virginia this week. So, no show later this week, but I don't know, maybe I'll record the Hall of Fame thing back in Virginia, but that's all I got from now. I'd like to thank you for spending your time with me, because you've always got time for short time.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MadTalkOnline.com.